We engage in authentic conversations about our weekly entrepreneurial goals while exploring business, failures, success, and personal growth.
We're going to continue to work and get better at this, so thanks for tuning in.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Our vision will highlight a diversity of guests who are creatives, industry leaders, and individuals creating positive change within our communities. Join the Our Vision podcast on our shared journey to becoming better humans. It's not only our vision, but it's your vision too.
FSU.
Good morning, everybody. This is the Our Vision podcast. And this is our first episode we've done in the morning.
Yes.
So we wanted to kind of feel how the energy was this morning doing a podcast. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk about what we accomplished during the week. Let's start with you, Joe. So you did a lot of cold calling.
I did.
How'd that go?
Excuse me. Been having a little trouble with my throat being dry, so give me a second. Well, let's see. We picked up last week. You looked back on our notes, and I was going to do more cold calling and actually call people, right? So we finally have reached that point. One of the things that made me reach out to some of the first calls I did this week was I was tagged for a raceway to do photography. And I'm like, well, I don't really know if that's going to work out for me because a lot of my clients are weekends. So what I did was I went and I'm like, oh, we didn't think about putting raceway sports onto our customer leads document, right? And I'm like, what do you think? And you're like, yeah, we'll put it under sports, right? So we went through and I data scraped from Google Maps, and we started calling those people, and we had a good response. So there's some follow-up needs to happen, but overall, people were one of the raceways we called. He was in Daytona at the time. He said, "Yeah, we were just talking about that. Like, we need video on our website, and we need content for social media. So we're going to open that discussion up hopefully later this week or next week." So it was more positive than I thought. And I started reaching out to the agricultural. I'm struggling here, Brad. We target areas, right?
The agriculture industry.
Like greenhouses, big greenhouses, nurseries.
Right.
And so I went into our data sheet and started our leads generated sheet and started calling those people. And that was also very positive. I had 2 clients that are interested, so we need to get back to them and send over our information.
How did you approach the cold calls?
Well, so for the drag strip, I started noticing it was really hard because it's kind of an off season here in Northeast Ohio, and some were answering and some weren't. So I would go through and look at who I might call. So for instance, I called one and there was nobody for marketing really, right? But they threw me to the CEO. And then the other one he picked up. For the greenhouses, it was different for each one. So I had to go through their website, figure out who I was going to call. Sometimes it was very clear who I was going to talk to, and sometimes it wasn't. One specifically, it was 2 sisters working in an office, and one was responsible for social media. And so she patched me over to her, and I was able to have a nice conversation about what that meant and budgets and things like that. So overall, it was positive, but still nerve-wracking. And what was really cool is some of them were really understanding about that. Like, yeah, making phone calls is hard. And what they did like about our company, I had 2 feedback. It was that we were in the state. So they get phone calls all the time from like California or other places, and they're not close enough to be able to work with them, or that's not the type of company they want to work with. So they want somebody that's in their same state or closer to them. So I thought that was interesting.
Let's go back to why you chose the topic of raceways through the industries that we chose, and it came down to, well, you had asked me about another topic suggestion, right? And I mentioned sports.
Oh, I asked what we should put it.
No, I think you mentioned raceways originally, and you asked me what you would categorize that under.
Yes,
it was sports.
Like, yeah.
And that clicked in my head. I'm like, oh, I'm into sports. I'm a fan of sports. maybe that's a topic we should go after, or an industry, I should say.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point. That's the whole process of us looking to go after clients and build revenue for ourselves or in the company is like it's opened us up to think about it differently, right? We didn't, and that's what happened when I said you told me, well, we should put that in sports, and then you're like, oh yeah. So I think you're bringing up a great point. It's pushing us to think of like whatever our interests are, and where do we want to be, like what other kind of clients we want. So yeah, it's surprising on that level too, because we haven't really done a whole lot of this over the years.
So going back to raceways, why did you decide to pursue raceways? Because that's kind of a very niche industry.
So I wouldn't have never thought of that, but somebody tagged me as a photographer to do that, and I started thinking, well, we could do video production. When I got on the site, some are doing video, some aren't, some need it, some don't. So yeah, I think that's why. I mean, most of what we've done so far has been word of mouth. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
So we're taking a proactive approach now to reach out to clients.
You mentioned Summit Raceway. That's what sparked it, right? Did you mention that?
No.
Just now? That's kind of what sparked it, right?
No, it was Sandusky Speedway, I think.
So Sandusky Speedway,
yep,
which sparked Summit Raceway.
Which sparked Summit, then Lorain County, and like I was like, oh, well, I never even thought of this as being something that we could work in. We haven't landed the sale yet, but I like that it's pushing us to think, oh, wait a minute. And then what's really cool is like taking the time to go through their website, right? So we're not just calling them up. I'm actually looking at their website, seeing what kind of video they already have or what kind of content on their social media. And so that's also beneficial to us, I think, as a company. The more we learn about different disciplines, the better we are producing a product for them. So we talked a little bit about that this week too, is that we don't want to just create content to create content, right? So just because we make a video for you, that's not going to solve your problem completely. It's going to either be an ongoing campaign, or you need to place that and get that in front of the viewers or your target audience, right? So yeah, so that's what sparked it. Somebody tagged me in a post. So
how many leads did you generate from cold calls? Would you say?
Can I estimate?
Yeah,
like probably out of the 10 phone calls, I have 3 or 4 that are still open, very open conversations.
And what industries were those?
The raceway and agriculture right now.
Okay.
So, and to be honest with you, I'm nervous doing it. So, I'm still cautious on calling people on some level. Like it feels.
Is that your stomach growling?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm cautious on calling people. It's like a little nerve-wracking still.
But you said overall it was a positive experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm pretty straightforward. I'm not trying to waste anybody's time either. You hear me while I'm talking. I'm like right to the point. Like I know I'm an interruption of your day. This is what we do. I'm not high pressure sales. I looked on your website. I see that you have a need for it. Have you thought about it? And
can you go into some details of the response that you got?
The one that was
was very surprising to me.
Yeah.
I heard all these conversations. We work next to each other every single day. So,
and one I had on speaker, I think, right?
Yep.
So the raceway guy was really surprising. He's like, yeah, we were just talking about that. We need somebody, right? Now, when I called back, he hasn't got back to me yet. So that was one. The other one was a greenhouse, and they were very open to it. What they've noticed is as a small nursery is that they have to increase their online sales. And so one of the ways they're going to be able to do that is creating content to tell their current customers or new customers across states, because this is what's happening in some of these small nurseries, is that they're selling and shipping plants. So I thought that was interesting, and they were very open to it. They've been talking about it, but they don't know quite how they're going to go about increasing those sales. So I started putting some thought to that, like what are other people doing?
So Joe's been on this kick with greenhouses and plants. And we were talking the other day about how he wants to open up a greenhouse, which kind of was part of the reason why it led to reaching out to the agricultural industry and your Fukian trees.
Yeah, I just would like to have a greenhouse on my own property.
What's the other thing you're looking into with the, you're looking at plants. that let more oxygen in.
Oh, I was looking at air pruning, which I never
pruning.
knew anything about. So they're pots that have holes in them, basically. And anytime that root hits the edge of that pot and the air, it prunes it back, it burns it, it dries it, it dehydrates, right? So what it does then is it tells the root to make more roots within the ball of it, right? And so what's really good about this is for trees. So and nurseries that don't use this, the root ball is very small. It's not as healthy as a root and I was looking up a gentleman online. He's got a master in horticulture, and he laid out the evidence. You can just see it. It's night and day. But what's really good about it, if you can do that for your trees, especially trees for a city, is that when you go to plant that, it doesn't shock. And I would say that most of the plants don't shock. It's ready to go because of the way it's grown, right? And it also adds its stability. So it's not going to fall over as easily in a windstorm. So I thought that was it's kind of an interesting thing. So I'm in the process of, just for my own hobby, and we talk about being overwhelmed a little bit, and we might get into that a little bit. It's like you have to find other things that bring you enjoyment. And so one of the things that brings me enjoyment is watching plants grow. So I'm thinking I'm going to play around with that a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah. So overall,
Joe makes fun of my spider plants because they're not doing the greatest right now. So
have to rescue the one. It's like
the one's drooping over the side of the pot.
I found out
we'll bring it back.
Spider plants come from Africa. I didn't know that until this week.
South Africa, right?
I think so, yeah. Yep. So overall, very positive. Moving forward to find other clients. And now, do I think greenhouses are going to be our strong revenue point for us? No, but we enjoy it, right? So I think we'll go after that and look for bigger clients too.
Yep. So it's all a numbers game. Just keep contacting, reaching out. You're not going to land them all.
No.
You're probably not going to land most of them, but the more you do it, the more chances you have of somebody coming back and wanting some work. So
I'm interested to see what our conversion rate is from me starting now and 6 months from now. So right now, we haven't converted it into dollars yet, but we've converted it into being receptive well.
But there were promising conversations you had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People were receptive, and they were genuinely interested, and a lot of them were. Did you mention this, that sometimes I forget some of the things you're saying, but the details of the conversation, but another part of what I want to get better at. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, they were very receptive, and they even admitted that they had been looking into video production.
Well, and behind the scenes, you're right.
A lot of them mentioned that.
Right.
And these are companies that you looked at online that were lacking in that area. And almost all of them, from what I understand from talking with you, were interested in getting into adding video content.
Yeah, they recognize that as a
their
gap,
brand,
right? Yep. To their branding or their marketing. And so you bring up a good point, is that, and behind the scenes, we started talking about that. Not only do we do video production, but we want to understand why it's important and what the trends are for that. But that has increased greatly since 2016 to now. Yes. Like we look at that video production or having video a part of your branding and marketing and reaching out and educating your clients or showcasing what you do and telling that story has increased every year since we've been doing this. Because it's undisputable that people are gravitating towards that kind of media, right? And sound bites, chunks over and over and over again. So,
and that'll take us back to what we talked about the last episode about one of our goals was social media posts every week consistently. And we mentioned Tip Tuesday and posting an infographic that displays why video works.
And if I could step it back a little bit, Brad and I have pushed and pulled on this conversation. We're pretty, we know we need to do it, but we also want to be credible in the information we pass on to people, right? We don't want to just be throwing stuff out to try to make a sale. So we've struggled at finding, I think we came closer to moving that forward when in years past we'd start talking about it and then move on to something else. And this week we've at least come up with a plan to start moving towards where do we find credible information at.
We're sticking to our guns, basically,
right,
and staying consistent and working on those goals. Yeah. So
we had a lot going on behind the scenes this week, but we had to stop to do that, right? We had to discuss, like, what are we going to do? So one of the areas that we talked about too is scheduling that out, and I want to just throw that out there on the air right now in this episode. So you and I have talked about, okay, now we've come up with some ideas of how we can get credible information, or at least some provoke people to think about video for their business, right? And we talked about scheduling it out. So one of our goals is for next week is to schedule out 6 weeks in advance these social media sound bites or visual bites for current clients and potential future clients. Excuse me, man, I'm losing my voice.
You're fading.
I'm really struggling with my voice this week.
What's going on, man?
I'm not sure.
Need some more water.
So does that make sense, right? So we agreed on that, right?
Yes. Makes sense.
And you also noticed and we haven't done a lot of this, Brad, but you were posting something this week and it tells you when the peak of your viewers are viewing your information, right? In the scheduling. Didn't you notice that?
In the
like,
scheduling.
Oh, most people are looking at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m. on specifically to your page.
Yes. Well, it actually shows you in Facebook.
Right.
In
That's
Facebook,
what I'm talking about.
What's the interface? Facebook Meta Business, I think.
Meta Business and the scheduler.
So we posted our Tip Tuesday post, and below it gave a suggestion for that day when the best time would be to post it. And we posted it. It was about 4:15 that day, p.m. And it suggested below it that it be posted at 8 p.m.
Right.
For our followers.
Right.
For what our
where
followers
we're at right now. Right.
Analytics are. So
I thought that was interesting. So that's a tip for people to look at. I was like, well, how are you maximizing getting your message out there, and are you utilizing the data that already exists? Because that behind the scenes there, that data is important. Like it's probably real data. We probably should be paying attention to that, right?
And that'll change as we build more followers,
right?
A bigger following. So
yeah, it's very specific to whatever you're doing.
Because a lot of our followers are in our state, so
right,
it's going to change as we grow. So anything else you want to get into with that post? Because I know you used another source for that post.
I did, and that
did some research, some market research into that. So
I was kind of alluding to that you and I, it's not that you don't want to do it. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's that we want to make sure that we're credible, and you've got a stronger.
So I was on the fence a little bit about it, but then I thought more about it, and I was
it's okay. Yeah. That's where it's been, right? That's why it's always stopped us is to do that. Is that we haven't been able to agree on what we want to do, right? Yeah. But we just decided we have to do something, right? This week we can't come back on the podcast and say, oh, we couldn't decide. No, come on, we got to move forward, right? Yes. So I came across a company. I went through and I didn't necessarily, to be honest, I didn't want to, not that I'm threatened by another video company, but I don't want to highlight their stats. I don't know how they got it. So what we went to it's a company called Hubspot, and they do CMR platforms, customer management relations solutions. So they automate daily things companies are doing. So lead generation, ticket sales, and these kind of things. And they write articles about video, all different kinds of subject within content, within taking care of those needs for their clients. Yep. And they have tens of thousands of clients. And on Facebook, they have 2 million, over 2 million followers.
So they have over 2 million followers. What is a CMR platform? Can you explain that?
Well, they do. So it's basically platforms that customer management relations, basically. So this company, they have multiple areas. They started this company, from my understanding, from watching their video online, they started off as a lead generator, right? And so then they do marketing automation. They do meeting scheduling, they do payments, they do ticket sales, they do web themes, and they do drag and drop like interfaces and editors. So they're coming up with these systems that help businesses do their daily task, right? To keep organized in that way. And they do other things, but that's just a brief overlay of what their platforms do and what they're offering companies. So we came across the article, and I started putting that in a document for us so we could have Tip Tuesday and start to schedule out things farther. And you at first were like, let me look at this, let me look at it. And you asked me, why did you pick them? Right? So I told you, and then you went in and looked at it, and then we both agreed on it. And we decided to use them. And I think of it, I think like we want to give credible information to why you'd want to have video content as part of your marketing management, right? For companies that aren't doing it and aren't thinking along those lines right now, right? And so we want to find credible information. I think of it kind of like when you're writing a college paper, you're sourcing somebody. So you have to attach yourself. If you don't have that data, how do we find credible data to be able to give to our clients as information, right? So we're going to source it like an API writing, or when you do a 20-page report, you're referencing them, right? And I felt really confident after looking at their business that I would use them as a source, and so did you, I think.
Mm-hmm. And we gave credit where credit was due.
Oh yeah, so I would never take anything from anybody that.
Yes,
we agree with that. And so the one that we posted had a visual graph to it, and video sat right there on the top as far as content.
Yes.
So of course, that is in line with what we want to share with people, but I think it
was the highest for companies' content strategies.
Right.
So
I think that's where we're at on that. I think our goal for next week is to schedule out 6 weeks.
Schedule out 6 weeks
for the Tip Tuesday.
Tip Tuesday, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's our goal. So hopefully we can come back and say that we scheduled everything in the.
Yeah. So what you can do with what we mean by scheduling is on Facebook, Meta Business, you can actually schedule your posts ahead of time,
right? And
it'll post automatically for you once you upload whatever content it is you're uploading. So that's pretty cool,
right? And so I think
I've one more thing. I've been out of the whole Facebook business space because I haven't been consistent in the past with keeping my content up to date. And I thought it was a really cool interface that they had. Easy to use.
I don't feel the same, but that's part of my dyslexia too. Mm-hmm. Maybe I struggle with navigating sometimes visually. Once I take the hours to put into it, I'm okay. But I'm still I'm getting better at it because I've done the ads and things like that. So. Yeah. But yeah, it's a nice. So what I like about us focusing on this for a 6-week period, so we could go do this every Tuesday, right, and waste our time on some level, or we still would accomplish our goal by staying consistent. But I think if we focus on it for 30 minutes to an hour, right, we can just get this done. So, multitasking doesn't always work. I think we have to be hyper focused on this task and be done with it.
It's like a mini campaign.
Yep,
pretty much. I think we need to look at it that way and start looking at it as a campaign.
Right.
And maybe similar to what we're doing with this podcast, like we're trying to have a format, topics to talk about. Maybe we'll pick specific topics within our industry and make mini campaigns out of that. So
I agree. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That's the goal. So we've been doing pretty good about moving forward on things. And this is really helping me hyper focus on areas that we know is important to growing, attracting new clients, keeping the ones that we have already engaged, and moving forward. So I'm to me, it's helpful.
Yes.
It gives us an outline to where we need to go.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I don't know if you felt anything else around that we could talk about, but I think.
No, as we continue it, we can talk more about it.
Okay.
Maybe more detailed information on how we're doing that, how the system works. We could do an episode that focuses on like Facebook ads
eventually
at some point.
Right.
Yeah, so another thing I know you wanted to talk about was our friend Laura.
Oh yeah. So
she helped you out a ton.
So my personality is that there's certain things that I'm not. I wish I was better at, but I'm not right now, and I'm trying to improve it. I'm not saying that I'm not improving. I just need help in certain areas. But Laura Jean Marketing, I know she wants to do social media, and she's basically a virtual assistant now because she's in Florida, and she's helping me out with the photography end of business. And so this week she was wonderful about cleaning up my Google Drive and reorganizing that, and she had the leverage and to do so. Like she called me, she didn't call me. She used a company called Loom, I think it's called.
Yeah, I thought this was
so
super cool.
So good for me because it's visual. So she can record her screen and what she did and where she put all my stuff. And she contacted me, and like when I make posts, she showed me how I could do that better. And so like she was working with me on that, but she did it all visually and recorded it. So I clicked on the link, and here's Laura Jean's face and down in the corner, and she's walking me through everything she did, how I can improve my post, and what she's working on and what she's going to be working on. And she was able to show me that she was scheduling it and how she was scheduling everything. And I had to actually make a personal phone call to her to thank Laura Jean Marketing for doing that, because not only did that ad, like it was so clear and easy to understand. And it, for me, she could have typed that all up in an email, and it was so quick. I could just look at it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and I knew exactly what she had done. So the added value to that was great.
Can you explain a little bit about Loom? What is it?
From what I understand, because I just get the link, but I want to look into it a little further this week. And I did go to their site, but we had a lot going on. But so Loom, somehow she's able to capture her screen, right? And then she's able to speak to her clients and show her screen. So like she was showing me everything that she did inside Google Docs for me. Mm-hmm. So even if she was creating something for me, she could put it up on the screen and say, oh, look, what do you think about this color? What do you think about this? Or what do you think about whatever, right? So she could do anything she wants with her screen. And then she's able to talk and walk me through what she had been doing specifically for Joe Retorto Photo, right? And I was like, this is awesome. Like for me, that's a great way. Because instead of reading an email, oh, I did X, Y, Z, da, 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 da. Like this was all visual, done. So cool, right? And to me, it has great... as a client of hers,
personalizes the experience.
The value, like the added value to that was great.
See a face to the name,
right? Yep. So much so that I got to say on air is that I was willing to hire for another month. That sold me
because of that using Loom.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How's that spelled? Loom.
Mm-hmm. And I want to look into that to make sure, but
that could be something we should integrate.
I liked it. I mean, it's just it's just a different energy of looking at an email. You know what I mean? I don't know. I liked it.
We should test it out for Kendra.
Well, and there was some free. You can do something free with it. So they did have like different tier packages for it.
Surprise her with a little. That came through email, right? And
yeah.
So it embedded the video itself into it.
She put that in email, but she was sending me
It's like a screen capture, basically. It's basically a screen capture software.
Yeah, but I think it is, but I think they have other... I don't know. I don't want to speak too much more beyond that. I don't know what other capabilities they have, but that's one of the things I know it did for her and us, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was nice. So we'll probably be having her do more of our marketing content, like posts in the future, like bringing her onto the video side of things too.
Yeah, I think whenever we can do that, that's going to be a wonderful, great deal of help.
Laura Jean Marketing.
Yep.
Right. That's the name of
she used her name. I love
business.
using. Yeah, it's great. Nobody has her name.
Right.
Well, and I love her logo. It's like this yellow lemon. I don't know. It's like
it's so her.
Really,
it's so
really bright.
Jean.
Yeah. Well, she did a logo.
It's the first time she's ever not used green, though.
Right. Well, she did a logo for me a while back, and when I came on full time to do some photography work, and I really was happy with her work.
She even went above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
She was helping you organize your Google Drive, and
she didn't have to. Yeah. So
that was nice of her to do that.
Well, and that was my goal this year, Brad. We talked about that. I don't know if we talked about that in earlier episodes. Like I started getting down this before we even went full time together again this year. Is that everything is a process, and I know I can't. I was coming across information, and that was one of the things that said everybody should have a virtual assistant. Try it, even if you don't own a business. And I thought that's interesting, and so it just worked out that Laura Jean wanted to do this for this is her path, right? She wants to do social media marketing and other virtual assistant things like along this lines, and I'm like, who better to do this with? I already know her, I trust her. she's passionate when she works. She's excited to look into new information and try to do the best she can, right? So I was confident in like partnering her, contracting with her to do this. I'm like, this is awesome. So I got a chance to try it, and it's worked out really well for me.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I made a sale because of her this year. So.
And how much? Well, I don't want to get into numbers, but yeah.
And some of it we can't. Like I was talking to her,
yep.
and I think we can talk a little bit about that with social media real quick.
Yep.
Is that
let's get into it.
You don't always see the results right away. You might not even know that because you did 10 posts that was because that's why you got the job.
Comes back to consistency.
Yeah. Staying fresh in people's mind is about marketing and branding, right? So the more we get ourselves out there, the more we talk about what we're doing in an authentic way with, I think, result driven, there has to be results, right? You're not just creating content to create content, right? So there's a reason why we're creating content. We're solving a problem or we're showing what we offer, right? Yep. And so I think the more we can stay in other people's minds around us as somebody I don't like to use the word expert because you and I both agree on that we're always trying to improve. Like there's people better than us. There's people worse than us. But I don't think we're an expert. I think that we're content creators, right?
No.
And so, but at some level we fit with a company, right? We fit with their budget. We fit with the experience. We fit with the knowledge that we've gained over the last 10 years or a decade, right? And so I don't think you always see the results right away. I think it might be 3 months down the road. They're like, wait a minute. Cinera's Creative has been, posting about video content and website. They're like, wait a minute, maybe I need to do that. Or now I'm ready to do that. I've set a budget aside. So I think that's important. It's not always immediate results. This takes time sometimes.
Oh, yes. It's all about patience and consistency.
But I am seeing results with Laura Jean Marketing.
Yeah.
I'm more organized. She's teaching me. She's helped with post. She's excited she's set up my Instagram in a good way. She's linked things like I should have been doing. All things I probably could have figured out, but take me a lot longer because that's not my focus. I just want to create content, do video production, do photography, talk to people, right? Do sales.
Yes.
And so you need help sometimes. You can't wear all the hats.
Yeah, that'll be a big part of going forward with business. So okay. Well, let's get into it now. Because I wanted to talk about this past week for me personally has been a little overwhelming. So that's where that comes into play, is where I'm like, you know what? I need someone else to help with things that I don't want to focus on so much. So like social media marketing, I enjoy doing it, but I feel like that's an area that I don't need to put all of my focus into. It's more of the content itself, creating the content, the video content. And I like to focus on that because video production is a lot of
It is a lot of work. Yeah, it's labor intensive, even, if I can just chime in here a little bit, but like, I agree with you. Like going to do the video is labor intensive, and then coming home is mentally home, office, whatever you want to say, right? Coming back to edit is a lot of work mentally.
Yeah.
And so we found out some best practices within those two camps that I'm talking about right now. But you're right. It's a lot of work.
And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining by saying I was overwhelmed. I just wanted to be open about what's been going on for the week. So the reason
talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason it's been overwhelming is because we have the podcast launch, which is this week, which by the time you hear this, it will have already been launched.
I also felt a little overwhelmed this week. We're starting processes that we haven't done in years. We're learning new things, right? And we're creating a lot of residual content besides the video production company. You're working on this podcast, so it's not just the podcast. It's also learning different interfaces,
video editing, trying to get quotes out to people.
We had a meeting.
A lot going on, and going back to the launch. So that's kind of where I became overwhelmed, because my goal was to get at least 5 videos out for the launch to post all at once. So, and I did that. I got the 5 videos launched.
The 5 audio launch. You didn't get the 5 videos.
Excuse me. Yeah, the 5 audio files launched. Currently, I'm working on getting all the video files for the full episodes up on YouTube. And at this point in time, and there will be more by the time you hear this, I've gotten the first full episode up in the trailer. So I'm going to continue working on that and getting those uploaded this week. And the thing that kind of sucks about that is because the episodes are on average at least an hour long, it takes forever to upload through our Wi-Fi on YouTube.
Right. So we might be plugging straight into the router. We'll get that worked out. But so yeah, there's a lot going on. So I think it's fair to feel overwhelmed. But what do we do to manage? I want to talk a little bit about that. I don't think we're doing well in when we getting overwhelmed with these new processes and staying on target and being consistent, right, and working hard daily, right, is what are we doing to also enjoy life? I don't think we're doing. Sometimes I think we need, like you talked about, exercise this week.
Yeah, I want to get more into, because it's about having fun while we do this, enjoying our lives, and that's one of the key things that we say. So
I think we need to look at that. So whatever that means to each of us. Like I noticed this week in my head, I said, you know what? I really need to go out to that nature trail and just walk alone for an hour or two. Right? I didn't do that. Yeah. I walked outside to go grocery shopping yesterday, and it's 45 degrees in Ohio in February, which is warm. Right?
And I didn't hop on my bike.
Right.
What was it? 6 weeks ago.
Right. Well, and so we're being honest about the failure.
But the weather's been kind of shitty too. So
yeah, we hit a cold spell, snowstorms, that kind of thing. But we need to do that, because I think taking those times to do those things that we enjoy is going to help us even better with this. Because I think I don't know about you, but when I'm out doing the walk, I'm still kind of working through these processes and thinking about it, or just relaxing my mind a little bit. And I noticed last night I was wore out with sitting in the chair at the end of the evening.
Yeah, I noticed you were mentally
really
exhausted. You were struggling with that. So,
right. So
yeah, I think it is important to keep your body healthy,
and your
because
mind,
it will affect your mind too.
And your mind,
if you're not living a healthy lifestyle, staying active, getting whatever fitness it is.
I noticed we ate less at the office this week while we were working. Like we went all the way till like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're like, oh shoot, we got to eat. We just completely. So there was a lot that
focus was heavy this week.
Right.
And when I get focused, and you know this, Joe, I get hyper focused. Like even it's hard for me, because Joe likes to communicate a lot to me, which I appreciate totally. But when I'm focused I got background noise going on, not that it's not important, it's hard for me to get back into that focused mode.
And I'm glad you're bringing that up, right? Yeah. So what I told him was I started realizing that the communication was overwhelming him even more with everything else that he had going on. So what I did was I stepped into rapport with him. And what I mean by that is, like, I brought my energy levels down, pulled back on communication, took care of what I had to, and then when there was a time that it felt better, I interjected to make sure that we were on the same page. One of the things that Brad and I, why we've been able to work together for 10 years, is that we try to stay in step together as far as what the message is, what we're trying to do with the company, how we communicate with clients, that, oh, are you okay with me communicating this way, right? We've done really well at that. And even if I mess up or you mess up, we pull it back, we talk about it, and we get back on the same page. It's not like a huge issue. But So saying that, being overwhelmed, I pulled it back. I kind of stepped into rapport with you a little bit and brought the energy levels on. And I think that helps, you know what I mean? Being aware of that, right? So,
yep.
But I think we need to get back on doing some of those things, being more healthy for ourselves and getting a better balance between what we're focused on.
I've been doing push-ups here and there.
Yeah, I've seen that. Well, exercise is good for you, man.
Yeah, get those calisthenics in. Let's see, what's the next thing we're gonna hit into? So yeah, just being overwhelmed, and I'm gonna go back into that too.
I wanted to talk. What was interesting about your hyper focus this week about getting us set up to get us on all platforms is also that the learning that happens within in each one of those interfaces. And you also learned some things that we might not go completely into this week, but even with YouTube, we talk about in the video production company, one of the things I don't like to see when I'm researching a company that either we worked with or that we want to work with is when you click on their video and it's linked to their YouTube, it takes us to other companies. Like I do not want to see a company, and sometimes it has nothing to do with even the same subject matter. So let me explain this and back up and be a little more clear about this. So and I'm excited that you learn that this is something that we can help companies with if we see this, and maybe we can offer that for them. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important. So many times you want to keep your client on your web page or within your content to be able to sell them. If they're already coming to you and looking for that information, you want to keep them in-house, right? In your media, in your content, in your social media, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things we've noticed with some of our clients is you'll click on their website, you'll click on their video that you created for them that they had uploaded to YouTube or wherever that platform might be, but most of the time it's YouTube. You click on it, and when you're done with their video that you created for them, right, it takes them to another YouTube video that is not related to their business. Not good. Not good on your website. You do not want this to happen, right? So this week, as we were creating this podcast and we have video that's going up, you started learning how to make sure that stays
I knew you
contained,
could,
right?
Yeah, when you upload your videos, it'll take you through steps of editing your details and titling and all that. As you go through the steps, it'll take you to an area, and I don't remember what it's called, but you'll see it on there where you can put ending. What were they calling it?
And that's why I didn't want to go too far into, but we're scratching the surface. We know we could sit down and figure it out, but
basically it'll put a thumbnail, and you see this on a lot of YouTube videos at the end title, you'll have clickable thumbnails. So what should happen with businesses that are utilizing like YouTube? Like you were saying, it was popping up videos that have nothing to do with their
populating company, somebody else's videos afterwards. You're not closing that gap.
Put like maybe your most recent video up and on that screen at the end so they can go and watch the next one.
Yeah, and then link it to all your past content video. Right? Yes. And I think that's really important. I feel that that's important. When I go to a website and see something different than that can be corrected. And I think it's important for the return on investment for your content. I really do. I think that people need to take the time to have that changed. And if they don't know how to do that, they need to find somebody that can do that for them.
So currently what I'm doing, so as this episode's happening, I'm uploading the second full episode video onto YouTube. So when I got to that end title screen in the steps of adding all your details for the video, I went back to episode 1 actually, and went to the edit and linked at the end episode 2. So after they finish episode 1, they can click right on episode 2 and go watch that.
Yeah, it goes 1, 2, and then go down the line, and it doesn't take you outside of your channel.
It doesn't take you outside of your channel, and it puts your logo in and it'll take you to the channel, I think. So they're clickable links, basically.
So those are a couple different, they're along the same
buttons.
Yes, they're along the ideas that we're talking about are along the same ideas. That keeps it all in series. It keeps it within your channel. Yep. Two different concepts, but two different ways of using that. But
there's many ways you could utilize that.
Anyway, so I thought that was cool. That's something that we've talked about before. Now we're starting to see the interface. Now we're starting to understand it better. And we're understanding how that can also be an added value to our clients, that we can help them make sure that they do that also.
And for me, a big thing for me is streamlining everything. So if I can streamline everything, that saves us time. It's huge. So what I did was with the YouTube, so I have a Google Doc created where I keep all my details of the show, like the show description. It's got keywords in there, so it's easier for people to search. And then I'll have all the tags and individual keywords or phrases that I can just go to my Google Doc. I can copy all that stuff and then copy it into my description, tags, keywords, into like the YouTube algorithm.
I mean, I'd like to talk
about the same with Facebook and all your other platforms that you're using.
Yes. And I'd like to talk about another way we're streamlining, like having a template for each episode.
Yep.
So the pictures is pretty much the same, or it's going to change up every once in a while, but the text, the format It's the same. So you can go through episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. You can save them out, but you have at least a starting point every time. That's another way of saving time for yourself. And being organized, file management with that is really important for us, right? So you're setting that all up.
So if anyone else out there has better ideas for streamlining these platforms, let us know, because I'm sure there's someone out there that has a way better way of doing it than what we are. So if we can learn from you guys, that would be awesome. Hopefully you guys are learning from us too. So
we're just doing the best we know how.
Yep.
I guess is my point. But so the other,
but again, go ahead.
The other thing I wanted to talk about this week is like, we're really talking about time management right now, right? And not wasting your time and finding better practices to help you streamline it so that you can get back to doing what you need to do also, right? This is a collateral part of business for us right now, the podcast, right? This is part of what we do. One of several things that we might have to do to be able to build revenue, right? So we're talking about time management. Budget. I want to talk a little bit about budget with you.
I almost forgot about budget.
And I think this will bring us to the end, sort of almost. But
yeah, yep.
When we're talking with clients, we talked about it in one of the other episodes. We came up with a client form, right, of asking questions about their project.
Questionnaire.
Yes. And this form in Google Docs will link to the data spreadsheet. They'll answer it, and it also is linked to a data spreadsheet where we can look at their answers. So what that looks like for us, as a brief overview, would be like, how long do you want your video, and what's your name, and what's your email, and what's your target audience, and what's your message of your video, and what's your budget, right? And so when you get an answer back on what's your budget, and they say very little, right? Like and you talked about it. Video production is labor intensive, right? And it takes time to produce good video and audio, right? So
yeah, it's important to find out what their budget is. And I've made this mistake numerous times, and I think it comes back to, I know it comes back to working with other people that that are personal acquaintances and colleagues. Working through them, you want to try to be more flexible. But I've decided that I'm not doing that anymore because we waste so much time on these communications. So, I mean, let's
generic example of that this week.
I'm just going to be matter of fact that you have to find out what that budget is from the customer. Now, here's another thing. It's okay to sit down and have a meeting and understand what their wants and needs are and what they're looking to achieve with the content that we're producing. But in that conversation, you have to find out what their budget is. If they don't have a budget, I would suggest not moving forward with anything until you know what you have to work with, because it's all about fitting it, whatever the content you're creating, or it could be anything, but fitting it, finding a way to fit our production to their budget.
And can I interject a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I really like what you're saying. It's okay to sit down with people and discuss that. They might not even know that you're part of it. So an example of this might be like you talk to somebody and they want, they think they want a 5-minute video, right? But they don't need a 5-minute video right now. Maybe their budget doesn't allow for that, but it does allow for a 15-second, a 30-second, or a 60-second, or sound bites, right? And so talking to them about what their goals are for their business and what problem they're trying to solve helps us maybe guide them long-term for something. That's the way I'm thinking about it, is that we don't need to do a $10,000 budget with everybody, but we need a starting point. They at least have to come in at the bare minimum of maybe $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, right? The bare minimum.
Yeah.
Like that would be bare minimum for the most part. And so those are the type of clients that we're looking for. But then when we understand them better in this meeting, we can say, all right, this month or this 6 months you budget for here, and next year you budget for this part and this part and this part, right? So yeah, I think you bring up a good point. There's nothing wrong with meeting with them and understanding what their needs are, but without a budget, like if somebody comes to me and says little to nothing, like what do you do with that?
And it's not that the client or customer's wasting our time. We're wasting our own time.
Yeah.
By beating around the bush, I guess you could say, with these little details. So getting to the point of finding out what their budget is, and it's...
Can you tell me how you waste your time? Tell me how it's a waste of time.
It's a lot of back and forth communications, trying to figure out like what the project is,
planning,
pre-production, who's handling that. And this comes back to also working with, like, for example, on one of the instances we're talking about, it comes back to being a contracted camera operator or production company through an agency. So, I would say, going back to what you said, it goes back to communication breakdown, I guess you could say, and just it wastes time, valuable time that you could be putting into when it doesn't need to be that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and if I can say it in another way.
Yeah, maybe you can say it better.
I think I can. I mean, you and I have had enough conversation about this. We've been trying to solve this problem for years, right? Because we've caught ourselves in this loop of doing this, not just once, right? Yeah. So one of the things is, I think, is like, you're right. You're caught in a loop of communication, right? Back and forth. But you're planning a project that they have no budget for. You don't know the budget. You're doing all this extra time and research and thinking about what their target audience is and building the scope of the project, the pre-production part of it, right? And then it comes down to they only have $1,000, right? or
yeah, they can either afford it or they can't.
Right. There's no sense in moving forward and spending a bunch of time thinking about what their project's going to look like. You're not building a $6,000 or a $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 campaign for them when all they have is $1,000, right? And
so for us, it comes back to, what is your budget? Do we need to scale it back? Can we fit our pricing to their budget? There may be times where they don't have the budget and we're not able to do it.
Right.
But if there's always wiggle room within production, there
is.
Maybe like something could be, maybe they're $500 under what we would charge. There's a way that typically we can work with them and make it happen for them. So
I'm going to give a generic example of this right now, without naming people and all that. Right.
Yeah.
So client A, you're working with a marketing agency, right? And we're coming in, right? So we got to figure out where we fit in that project. Client doesn't have a budget, right? They want 7-minute videos total, but they don't have a budget. How do you fix? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? So when you talk to the client, maybe you find out what the problem they're trying to solve, right? So let's say it's a nonprofit. So if they don't have a budget, what do you think we need to work on? In my head, what I would work on is, how do we highlight what they do on a 30-second video, and then on a 30-second video, we highlight how they donate to that organization, that nonprofit, and a 60-second video of what they do, an overview of why that works and why it's a really good nonprofit, right? And so to me, it's like, no, you're not going to get a 7-minute video. What you're going to get is, we're going to try to solve the problem of you not having a budget to be able to do this, right? So a strong message, a call to action. Why this works for people, why this nonprofit is good. Please help us out to be able to reach to help other people, right? And so that's how I would view it, scaling back their project. And there is wiggle room in that. I'd even be willing, if I believe in the company, I would be willing to go $500 one way or another.
Or some kind of discount.
A discount. If I get a sense of this person is dedicated to that nonprofit and we can see it grow, right?
Yeah.
So that was one way I look at it. So,
right on.
Budget. So we've nailed that down. You and I are not going to be going into heavy.
So now we know how to handle it,
right?
Rather than wasting our time and the customer's time, just getting straight to the point. And if they need some time to figure that out, that's totally cool too. They don't have to give us it right away, but we can't continue with anything with the production discussing like what the scope of it is.
I like how you said it off air.
So
I like how you said it off air, because this is really our philosophy, is like, it's okay to meet with them and help them figure that out.
Yeah.
They might even know how they can leverage video on their like, if they don't have video and it's not part of their marketing strategy or their message strategy, we can help them with that, right? And there's nothing wrong with sitting with somebody and starting to talk about that, even if they're not ready to jump right in fully, right? So I really like that's paraphrased.
Understanding what it is they need, what goals they're trying to accomplish, but we can't get into any production aspects until we understand what their budget is.
Right.
So because our time is valuable to us,
well, we might,
and them.
We have other things that we can be working on that sales. I need help right now with you and I defining that and researching and making sure who we want to go after. So our time might be better vetting other clients, right? And doing sales,
Right.
Than sitting to figure out what a budget is when they don't or a project to a budget or build a project to a non-existent budget. No budget.
Yeah.
That's silly. I said to you the other day, I was like, I don't go to a store and say, yeah, I know you're selling these 8 cups as a group, right? But I only need 4. And I'm just going to take these 4 out of the package. Is that okay? Most stores would never allow you to just take something and break it all up, right? And that's kind of how I'm looking at a budget. Like if you don't have a budget, we can't build something for you. You have to see the value in it.
So one more thing I wanted to get into was how the format for the podcast is evolving. And we're kind of taking a slightly different approach, and we're trying to focus more on what it is we're doing to keep it consistent with the goals that we're trying to achieve on a weekly basis, and what we've learned, what you can learn from that. So I think in the early podcasts, it was more open-ended and loose, and we were kind of veering off a lot. There wasn't a solid foundation for what we were trying to, what topics and information we were trying to hit on. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say we're trying. I think that is very true. I also think that we're trying to find our footing behind the mic and sitting in front of a camera. We felt awkward. We're still coming over some of those hurdles. We weren't as prepared as we are today, like we would have been at the first episode. We were trying to, we're determining, like, are we going to be using cuss words? How much of our, joking personality is going to come out on air? A lot of those things play a big factor in, like, us sitting here and talking. And I think you and I I think you're right. Like in this later episodes now, where we've got this back and forth conversation going, where that was a little hard at first. So yeah, I think we're finding our footing. The other thing is like, we're really excited to have guests on. So we looked at that, like what format, how do we want to present ourselves as people, right? And so that's all coming to the foreground now. And I think it's going to look different at 20 and 50 and 70 and 80.
But it has changed from our first 5 to our last 5, 7 podcasts. So I think we're starting to nail down what it is we're trying to accomplish, and it's going to evolve over time,
Yeah, I hope it does.
And I'm hoping we can hit on specific topics for different episodes too, like nailing it down on what it is we're going to talk about on this day of the week. So we'll continue improving that process and continue releasing on a weekly basis. So
I like that we're being authentic about areas that we're not exceeding our own expectation. I seen you had in the notes there at the bottom there about the kitchen. We didn't quite get.
I added that. I didn't know if I wanted to get into it, but it goes back to being overwhelmed. We kind of fell behind on our kitchen goals and getting that kitchen remodeled.
And so if you haven't listened to the other episodes, Brad and I bought an investment property together, and we're fixing it up to possibly either Airbnb it or turn it back into a rental. It's a duplex, and we're looking for another property. So in the process of doing that, Brad and I are, because of the resources that we have, we're doing the work ourselves. I think that's a fair way of putting it, right, Brad? So we got this goal of, we fixed up the living room, we fixed up the entranceway, we fixed up the what would be known as a dining room and 2 bedrooms we've got fixed up, and we redid the whole floors and painted it. But now we're on the kitchen, right? And our goal was, we went out last week to buy this stuff, and then we got overwhelmed with everything we were working on this week, and we couldn't get to the renovation or the updating the kitchen part of the project. So I like being honest. I think we're speaking to the format. Like, I like to talk about what we're hitting, the goals that we are hitting, and where we fall short. I want to be very authentic about our process, because I want to be accountable, and I think this podcast is going to help us move forward too in our businesses, our endeavors, the other stuff that we're pursuing. So
you guys know, we're going to be hitting on our property investments, how we're approaching that, and what steps we're taking to achieve our goals in that area. Business as entrepreneurs. And even getting into our personal lives and how we can improve as people.
Right, and we talked a little bit about that on
and
this
learning
one.
from others, from the guests that we have on, and what drives them, and
what pitfalls they fit too. I mean, like this
Yeah.
doesn't happen in a vacuum. And the other thing that too I think is really important is that I don't think we succeed on our own. And what I mean by that is like the clients that we've had, right, Brad? Like, how do we build those relationships and maintain those and keep those business relationships, right? You don't succeed on your own. Even if you're an entrepreneur by like a small business or working for yourself, you need other people to succeed, right? So while we don't have a boss, we have clients that we have to create a product for, right? And so I think that's interesting too, is like, how do we keep those relationships going? And you made me think of that when you said about guests. Like, it's going to be interesting listening to other guests, like what they've had to go through to build whatever they're building or working on. And I think there's a lot of value there we can learn from them.
And throughout this process, we're not going to be perfect. We're going to have failures, but it's about how you overcome those failures and keep moving forward.
Right.
Because tomorrow's another day.
It is another day.
And we're over the hour mark. So is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm
Joe?
just very happy to be doing this podcast with you, Brad, and thank you for all the hard work you've
Same
been doing
here.
for
Same here.
getting things ready together, because you have other gifts or skills that I don't have. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Likewise. Yes, thank you. So, yeah, we're at the end of this podcast. Thanks, everyone, for listening and sticking with us. We're going to continue this. Keep an eye out for more podcasts. We have, at this point, we are on the 12th episode. But as I'm saying this, we've only released 5. So there are 7 more coming. And I'm going to do a dump of like 3 to 5 soon. So the next 3 to 5 episodes.
And eventually they'll be
caught up. And
one of the things we're going to be working on is when we have a guest on, we're going to be highlighting them on a blog section. So you'll be able to go and look at their content, see what they're up to. And if you're interested in more of what they're doing, there'll be a direct link from our website.
So yeah, check us out. We're on all the major podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all the other ones, Pandora,
Amazon,
all those. So continue to look out for new episodes. We're on YouTube also. We have a channel with full episodes and a channel with sound bites, and I'm working on getting that set up. So keep a lookout, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification on YouTube. Give us a review on the podcast format, on the podcast platforms. Rate us and reach out if you'd like. Just so you know, our email is hello@ourvisionpodcast.com, and our is spelled HOUR.
Yep.
So, yeah, thanks for listening, and I think that's a wrap, right?
That's a wrap.
High five. Boom. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Keep doing something every day.
Oh, yeah.